I always struggled with being skinny fat my entire life, and what I want to do in today's video is share the tips and tricks that got me from skinny fat to pretty ripped, and in a fairly short amount of time. Now, I do want to say this is not a quick process. You're not going to get like what you see on these videos, abs in 10 minutes or abs in 24 hours. This is going to take some time. But if you're consistent, then it should not take as long as you may think. Okay, so what I have here is my Fat Loss 101 document. Now, you can go and grab this in the description below, but this basically goes over everything you need to know for fat loss and targets different types of people. I'm going to start with skinny fat because that's the situation I was in, and we're going to go from that to pretty ripped pretty quickly. Now, what is skinny fat? You're at a normal weight, but you have high body fat and low muscle mass. Your abs are not visible, not because you're overweight, but because you lack muscle definition and you still carry too much body fat. Now, there's different options that you can take. The first one is that you cut first. So you want to lose that fat. And as you can see, for men, it's between 12 and 15%. For women, it's between 18 and 20%. But you want to get down, you want to cut that weight before you then start to build muscle. But then, obviously, you will want to lean bulk to slowly build that muscle. Pros are, you'll see your abs sooner because you're learning the skills of fat loss first. But cons, you'll look slightly small and skinny to begin with. Now, option B is bulk first. Now, this is what I actually did right at the beginning of my journey. So I built muscle for 4 to 6 months in a small surplus. So I was eating about 3,000 calories a day, with my maintenance being roughly 2,700 roughly. Then you want to cut to reveal the muscle you built. And then, the pros are you build a better physique earlier, but then you'll also get softer initially, and you'll gain a bit of fat as you are in a bit of a surplus. Now, I'll always recommend option A to people in my starting situation, being skinny fat, because you learn discipline and fat loss very, very quickly. You establish your baseline. You also, you see abs sooner, and this motivates you because you know it's possible. Step 1, find your maintenance calories. Now, this does say use between 33 and 35 times your body weight. However, there is a calculator linked in the description below where you can go ahead and calculate your maintenance calories. It'll ask you different questions about your height and all these sorts of different things, but you will get your maintenance calories. Obviously, we want to lose that fat. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our deficit. We're going to start with a 500 to 600 calorie deficit. And obviously, here's an example. So let's say your maintenance is 2,970. You're in a 550 calorie deficit roughly per day, so you're eating that many calories. And this should lead to between half a kg and 0.75 kg per week. Step 3 is setting protein. So a daily calorie deficit is widely recommended and effective for those who want to sustainably lose fat. But in terms of protein, we want to look between 2 and 2.4 grams per kg of body weight. So let's say you're 90 kg. You should times that between, you can pick 2 and 2.4, pick a number that's realistic for you. If you know you can get more protein in, then maybe choose 2.4. However, if you know that maybe, it's harder for me to get protein for some reason, then you want to choose 2, but you want to be in between this range. Otherwise, none of this is really going to be that effective. So you want to have 198 grams of protein. And what you want to do then is, we know that each gram of protein is 4 calories, so we can calculate the amount of calories coming in from protein. And obviously this will vary depending on how much protein you need. Now, for fats, I recommend between 0.8 and 1 gram per kg of body weight. We want to be working with healthy fats. And so you can calculate the calories coming from that. As you can see, 81 grams of fat, much less than the protein. However, the calories are roughly the same, and this is why we want to have quite a considerable amount less fat than protein. But you can calculate the calories of that, and then whatever's left. So the number that we calculated that we need to eat, the difference between what we're eating now and what we need to eat, will be filled with carbs, and that's just how I do it. So you get your final macros like this. And phase 2 is the meal structure. So the protein first approach, and this is what I recommend everyone do. This is what I personally do. So meal 1, breakfast. Obviously it doesn't have to be at 7 a.m. But what I like to do here is have at least 25%, if not more, of my daily protein intake in the first meal. So as you can see here, 198 grams of protein. We have over 40 grams, which is which is about 20% of our daily recommended intake. Moderate carbs. So for carbs personally, I have 2 sourdough toasts, but here in the example it has oats, and that's completely fine as well. And then berries. I want to keep, as you can see, keep the fats moderate. There is some fat in eggs, so that's completely fine. Meal 2, lunch, again, we want to aim for roughly the same amount of protein. As long as you can get that protein in the day, that's all that really matters. I do like to get the protein out the way early in the day, and there are reasons for this. However, as long as you get the protein in, that's all that really matters. But for lunch, an example would be chicken breast, rice, and large salad. Also, vegetables can fill you up fairly quickly, and so this is a great addition to have, so you have less cravings during the day. What I like to do is focus my carbs into my pre-workout snack, because not only do you need to get your carbs in at some point, people say don't have carbs. This says protein shake, banana, rice cakes. These kind of things, you load up your carbs before your workout, which is great. You'll get a better pump, but then also you're getting your carbs in mainly with this meal. And then meal 4, dinner, again, you want to get a good amount of protein in. Meal 5 before bed, this is very optional, but if you haven't hit your protein intake, you'd want to have something very high in protein and very low in carbs, again, because this is before bed. And so maybe something like Greek yogurt, or just something really high in protein with minimal carbs. This is really important. Now, in terms of food choices, this is really, really important, and people normally skip over this. A lot of people say, I can just have pizza and burgers, because technically, I'll get my calorie goal, and I can have a chicken pizza, so there's protein on it. You can do that if you want, but I really don't recommend it. What I recommend is high volume, low calorie foods. So things like vegetables, lean proteins, berries and apples, things like even popcorn are great. And what these do is they fill you up, so you don't feel like eating. You don't get those cravings, and then you get to avoid overeating. Things that I would have in moderation are things like whole grains, fatty fish, although these are good, whole eggs, avocados, things like this, even olive oil actually. Olive oil is one of those things that you don't really realize it, but when you're cooking with things like olive oil, the calories add up. They really do add up. And so, of course, it's great to have these, and these are a great addition to your meals, as long as they're obviously within your nutrition goals, and also if you don't have too much of them, then they're absolutely fine. And then things I'd avoid. So processed foods, completely avoid these. And obviously this is very difficult for many people. So what I do to the people that I work with is that I say, it's okay in moderation, but I definitely recommend to avoid them. Sugary drinks and sugary foods. I guess sugary foods come under processed foods, but anything with processed sugar in general should be avoided. And I completely cut out sugar when I was I think I was 16. I completely cut out sugar. Alcohol. Now, phase 4 is hunger management tips, because when you eat like this, especially if you're used to being in a surplus, you may struggle. You may find it difficult to stay in this much of a deficit for this long to then cut off that fat. So here's what I recommend. Number 1, protein at every single meal that you have. Okay, protein is the most satiating macronutrient. In other words, it fills you up, so you don't really feel like eating too much after it. And so I recommend every single meal you get a good amount of protein in. And this will be really, really important. Eat high volume foods. A massive salad with 200 calories of vegetables fills your stomach like a bag of chips with 400 calories never will. Okay, and that's just the truth. Okay, so try and have these high volume foods that are not very calorie dense. If you do have caffeine, use it strategically. Black coffee suppresses appetite, so maybe you're getting to that point of the day where you'd normally have a sugary snack or something with a bunch of calories in. Maybe you have a fast food habit. Obviously, if it's not too close to nighttime, black coffee, especially in the morning, actually is really, really good. Green tea is another really, really good one, and all these herbal teas are just great. Okay, now I want to get onto the training system, because you can lose fat, but you need to be training at the same time. So here's a routine. This is what I'd recommend: 3 to 4 sessions per week, and focusing on compound movements that build/preserve the most muscle. So here it is. Day 1 is going to be upper body, focusing on compound lifts and just making sure that you're most efficient with your workouts. Bench press, and especially these incline presses are focusing on, chest, shoulders and triceps. So you save the most time, which is what I like to do. I'm in the gym for maybe an hour, if that. We have these upper body and we have upper body pull, and then we have full body plus abs. A lot of people thinking that just training abs will get you the abs, but you need to be training full body resistance training so you can see not only fat loss but muscle, at least muscle preservation, but if not muscle building. Key principles: progressive overload is try and add weight or reps every single week or every other week, which is what I do. Track your lifts, mainly just track your reps and your sets and your weight. If strength drops significantly, you're losing muscle, okay? So you need to eat more, you need to increase those calories. And what I normally recommend is obviously being in this deficit to shred that fat off, but then going on a mini lean bulk to gain some mass, gain some muscle, and then shred it off, and then repeat this cycle. Now is cardio. So obviously being in a calorie deficit is really important, and some people struggle to be in enough of a calorie deficit to see much difference because they like eating. And obviously if you want to lose fat, you have to be serious about your calorie deficit. One way to be in a great deficit is by doing cardio. 10 to 12,000 steps a day is required. Why walking? It doesn't interfere with recovery, doesn't spike hunger, burns calories, can be done anywhere. This is why I prefer it to things like running, where you can't do it for long periods of time, especially if you're just starting out, and you can't. It's harder to fit it in your day. Whereas walking, you might walk to work, you might walk in between to different places. It's a lot easier. Secondary cardio, things like in moderate intensity, cycling, swimming, rowing, HIIT workouts. Here's the priority: 10,000 steps. Resistance training 3 to 4 times a week, and if you really want, optional additional cardio. Now we have some mistakes here. The one I want to focus on is mistake 5, doing too much cardio and not enough weights. Excessive cardio without resistance training causes muscle loss. You'll look skinny and undefined. You will not look lean and muscular. So prioritize resistance training 3 to 4 times a week. Add walking for steps, and obviously be in that calorie deficit, but with a high protein intake. Another one is comparing to others. Everyone's starting point, genetics, and lifestyle are completely different. Compare yourself to yourself, track your progress, and celebrate your wins.